Welcome. Today's session covers three interlocking themes. Firstly, what the UAE dollar swap actually means for the US petrodollar strategy, the ramifications for the UAE of siding firmly with Washington and Tel Aviv, and three, Saudi Arabia's strategic bind, and why the Saudi-UAE divergence is the hidden fault line most retail analysts are missing. That's Fryer's variable C. So Fryer's thesis: what looks like a wartime financial lifeline is actually a deliberate act of petrodollar consolidation. So let's keep that frame in mind throughout. And I just want to put in here for anyone that's watching, Fryer makes these videos to build his own understanding of the situation that the video is covering, plus to help others understand the importance to trading of understanding and following geopolitical events. This way you can create your own what-if scenarios. It works. The UAE dollar swap line. What do you think Washington is getting out of this? UAE's financial position, April 2026. The key point here is this is not a bailout situation. The UAE is not Argentina. S&P affirmed the UAE's highest possible short-term credit rating last month. The Council for Foreign Relations, Brad Setzer, confirmed publicly he does not believe the UAE is in emergency need. This matters because the framing of the swap line was financial distress, is politically convenient but analytically wrong. The numbers exist to set up the next slide's question. If they don't need the money, why ask for it? The answer? Leverage and architecture. Why the UAE asked and what the US gets. First, UAE's yuan threat was leverage. They used it. Washington responded. That's how diplomacy works when you have a genuinely strong balance sheet. Second, Besant's own words are unambiguous. He said, new US dollar funding centers in the Gulf and Asia. This is a strategic expansion to the dollar system, not a defensive emergency measure. Previously, Fryer has talked about controlled defeat hypothesis, a crisis that forces Gulf allies to formally anchor themselves to the dollar via Fed-backed swap facilities, is a crisis that serves the US financial interests well. Whether that was planned or simply exploited opportunistically is a secondary question. The outcome is the same. Now, some trading implications to keep in mind. Short-term dollar strength. However, when the US dollar weakens, that puts our GLD and SLV longs into play, and they're part of the long-term structural thesis. But the swap line buys the petrodollar system time. Now, UAE siding with US-Israel. The UAE made its strategic choice back with the Abraham Accords in 2020. Everything since has been consistent with that choice. And the Iran war is the first time it's been tested at full cost. The physical price the UAE has paid. Abu Dhabi's alignment is not a cost-free political choice. They are taking missiles, losing infrastructure revenue and rebuilding missile defences simultaneously. The Fujairah attack is particularly significant because it's located outside the Strait of Hormuz, meaning it was one of the last functioning oil export routes. Iran targeting it shows they understand the strategic geography exactly. This brings in Fry's watch list. BDRY is the ETF for the big tankers, and FRO, Frontline, is the biggest oil tanker company. Fry's had some trades with FRO after Venezuela. UAE's strategic bet. The UAE's calculation is a long-term and rational. Absorb the pain now, emerge from the war as the indispensable Gulf partner. The swap line is the financial formalisation of that political positioning. Saudi-UAE rivalry is Fry's C variable, identification in action. Most Western analysts focus on US-Iran binary. The actual structural variable is whether Saudi Arabia and the UAE remain aligned or diverge. If they diverge, and the evidence suggests they already are, the Gulf becomes much harder for Washington to manage. Abu Dhabi is playing chess, while most of the region is playing checkers. Saudi Arabia's strategic bind. Saudi Arabia is the most analytically important piece of this framework. UAE has chosen its side. Iran is the adversary. But Saudi Arabia's choice, and specifically its choice about oil pricing currency, is the variable that determines the macro outcome of everything we're trading. Hormuz closure, Vision 2030's hidden vulnerability. Saudi Arabia built Vision 2030 on the assumption that Hormuz was functionally permanent and functionally secure. That assumption is now broken. The investment case for Saudi Arabia as a regional hub, which underpins sovereign wealth inflows, tourism projections, and industrial zone development, has a new risk factor that cannot be diversified away. The pipeline capacity gap is critical. 4 million barrels per day were capacity versus 7 million barrels per day pre-export volumes. That's a 3 million barrel a day structural deficit that will take years and tens of billions to close. So, trading implications to keep in mind. Saudi Aramco's capex will rise. Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund will draw down risk increases. Watch for any sovereign wealth fund asset sales. That is a negative signal for global risk assets, not just Saudi sovereign wealth funds. Look for any from the GCC. Thus, MBS squeezed from every direction. MBS is operating in a classic multi-front dilemma. He cannot fully align with the US-Israel axis without triggering Iranian escalation against Saudi infrastructure and damaging the China relationship that funds Vision 2030. He cannot stay fully neutral without losing US military protection and advanced weapons access. The information warfare point is subtle but important. By portraying Saudi Arabia as secretly aligned, US and Israeli media are forcing MBS into a strategic corner. Even his denials make him more of a target for Iran, because Iran cannot risk allowing a neutral Saudi Arabia to quietly provide logistical or intelligence support. The Saudi-Chinese currency swap is our C variable, the alarm bell. If MBS ever moves that swap agreement towards yuan-denominated oil contracts, even for a portion of exports, that is the single most important macro event of the decade. Watch for it. Fryer will be. The petroyuan risk, the market's blind spot. The irony is live. The mechanism designed to preserve dollar hegemony, the US military action in the Gulf, is generating the conditions that make dollar alternatives more attractive. Every missile Iran fires at Gulf infrastructure is a demonstration that dollar-denominated oil revenue is not secure. Every swap line request is a reminder that the system requires active maintenance. Every yuan-denominated Hormuz passage negotiation, that means oil gets through, is a proof of concept for the petroyuan. Michael Hudson has been arguing for years that dollar hegemony is self-undermining. What's new is that we have a live test case playing out in real time. Trading-wise, Fry's SLV and gold positions, this is the long-term structural support. Short-term volatility is noise. The direction of travel for dollar alternatives, including silver as a monetary metal outside banking system and its manufacturing uses, is set by this macro architecture. Okay, let's close with the C variable nobody is pricing. The swap line is petrodollar consolidation dressed as wartime emergency. Bessett knows exactly what he's doing, and he said as much publicly. This is strategic, not reactive. The UAE's alignment is now locked in. Abraham Accords swap line, 1.4 trillion US investment pledge. Abu Dhabi has crossed the Rubicon and is betting on being Washington's #1 Gulf partner. The physical price, infrastructure damage, closed schools, missile strikes is being absorbed deliberately. Saudi Arabia is the C variable that determines the macro outcome. If MBS holds the line and keeps oil priced in dollars, the petrodollar survives. If Saudi pivot signals emerge, watch for any statement about yuan-denominated oil contracts. That is a regime change event for the entire dollar system. That is what SLV, gold and energy volatility positions are ultimately being sized up for. Happy day.